I mean, it's bad enough now that youngsters are getting plastic surgery to look like a filter that they can put on their photos. Now they're going to be looking to these AI models and thinking that's realistic.
AI plus capitalism equals the win.
People are questioning whether Vogue were right to let this go out.
Anyone who's surfing their regular websites or apps will see their feeds kind of change to squeaky clean. If you want it back the way it was, you have to actually upload your ID.
Brazilian football is addicted to gambling, and it's low-income families that are bankrolling these gambling companies.
For this Online Safety Act to really work, it has to be implemented worldwide, which is likely never going to happen.
Hello and welcome to episode 94 of Disconnected. I'm your host, Jag Sharma, joined by Jen Campbell in Hong Kong, Jason Kapadia in London, and Matt Webster in Rio de Janeiro. And together, we'll be delving into the world of AI, tech, and social media and how it's impacting society and culture. Coming up, why hire a human fashion model when you can build one with AI? What could possibly be wrong with that? The UK has solved online safety for all of us. Absolutely nothing to worry about, nothing to see here, all is well, or is it? Brazilian football is addictive in more ways than one, as well as other trending topics. Jen, why don't we go straight into the first story? AI models with their super realistic beauty standards.
Yeah, this is a big one. If the tabloid headlines are to be believed, then, it sparked fury among readers. And so this story is about the August print edition of Vogue. And there's been an ad for the brand Guess that's gone out, and it uses an AI model rather than a real model. So the good news is, in very small print, it says that this has been generated by AI, but everybody go and take a look at it. The small print is very small and it's very sideways and not that easy to see. So this has been created by a Paris-based design-driven AI marketing agency. That's how they sell themselves. And they're called Seraphine Valora. And this agency focuses on making AI people for different adverts. They work a lot in the fashion world, and they have 5 employees in total, so not many. And so, they've been creating this ad for Guess that's got a blonde-haired, big-boobed model modelling the latest clothes for Guess. And it's obviously caused a lot of controversy in terms of the look of the model. I think the fashion industry in the last 20 years has come along a lot in terms of the models they use, their ethnicity, showing different shapes and forms. And this is converting back to the old-fashioned views of what a model should look like. And so one of the founders has said, ultimately all adverts are created to look perfect and usually have supermodels in them. So what we're doing is no different. Which is an interesting take in itself, because I guess they're right. They are using a model-esque AI model, and they have had to go through a lot of stages. So I think they said it takes about a month to create this model and to get it looking the way it did. And, they had a brief from Guess and they came up with about 5 different looks. And ultimately the brand chose this blonde-haired, blue-eyed, big-boob model to be on the advert. And so it's opened a lot of worry about the industry, because it's not just the models that are kind of kicking off about it. And, there's a lot of mental health experts that are saying beauty is going to end up going back to being where it was, where there's this idealistic view of what you should look like. And people are going to, it's bad enough now that youngsters are getting plastic surgery to look like a filter that they can put on their photos. Now they're going to be looking to these AI models and thinking that's realistic. So that's one thing. And the other part is actually the amount of people that it puts out of work. So like I said, this company has 5 people working for it. But if you think about a photo shoot, you have makeup artists, you have casting directors, you have studio bookers, you have photographers, you have lighting, you have all these people that go into a photo shoot. And so there is a real industry-wide issue beyond the models that this causes. And to counter that, one of the founders of this agency has said that part of their process does require them to hire a real model and a photographer and to shoot these products to see what they look like in real life, to make sure the AI simulation is near enough perfect to what it would look like. So then you question, if you're doing that, why not just go the whole hog and take the photos with a model? Obviously, they'll have done it much cheaper, but just an interesting take. So I think this is an interesting also because people are questioning whether Vogue were right to let this go out. Vogue is the fashion Bible. What Vogue says goes. And so people are saying, they are the industry standard. And if they're letting this through, then is that the way it's going to go? Vogue, on the other hand, will say that this is not editorial, it's an advert. And does it conform to advertising standards within Vogue? Yeah, it probably does. It's high fashion, it shows clothes, it's focused on the look, not so much on how it was created. They have nothing to do with how it's created. So they, I imagine, will step away from this by saying it's not editorial, they didn't create it. So I don't know. It's an industry that's very much in peril to see where it goes, because, again, it might be one of those things that guests did it because they wanted the headlines and they wanted everyone talking about it, and they're kind of the first to do it, and maybe they'll revert back. Maybe they're cash poor and they need to really push to get sales, and then maybe once they've got the sales, they'll come back to using real models again. The industry always says it's supplementary, that it won't replace all models, but it will be used as a supplement. But in the same way airbrushing was, and that was ostracized for a long time. So I don't know if you guys have seen it and what you think. I think my personal take on it is that you're going to lose a lot of kind of personality from shots. You're going to end up with a lot of same old, because everyone's going to use a similar a look. And yeah, it's a worry for the people that's going to put out of work. So what do you guys think?
The most surprising thing for me wasn't the fact that it's cheaper and it's going to put people out of work, because, as we've discussed many times, AI plus capitalism equals the win. Unfortunately, that's the way things are going in lots of sectors. The bit that surprised me in particular was this agency that you discussed there, that you mentioned. They were asked in the interview why their Instagram feed for the agency was full of one particular skin tone, which was white with blue eyes. You mentioned blue eyes for that model in Vogue. And their response was, yeah, well, we did some other AI models with different skin tones, but nobody interacted with them. So that's why we just have white skin, blue eyes on our feed. And that was the bit that really raised my eyebrows and got me thinking, where's this going? That's a strange direction. But in terms of Vogue taking the advertising money and Guess the brand spending less to get the same look, that does not surprise me, because that's AI plus capitalism at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. AI plus capitalism. I mean, it does benefit like the smaller players without the huge marketing budget. And, if you're trying to just get started, you can have those kind of professional looking shots without the huge expense. But yeah, Jen, I agree with it lacks personality. And then I guess we're getting into this world where everything can be, well, I guess it already is curated, but with digital marketing especially, the ads can be easily tailored to your profile or what type of, say, if you are a specific skin color or a specific body size, you can it can rapidly iterate and create all of those different creatives on even the same AI model. So someone's slightly larger, someone's smaller. And I guess that's where, that hyper personalization is going to come from this, AI boom that we're going to see. It's going to be really interesting over the next year. I'm sure it's going to be all over our feeds and that. Zach, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I like your points, Jace, especially around, for smaller players, it gives them a chance, if their budgets aren't there. Jen, I've got quite a bit to say on this, so bear with me, and then I would love your thoughts on my thoughts. So I initially looked at this and thought, okay, well, what are the advantages of AI models in fashion? And I think there's actually there's several advantages, not just the one that Jason said. So, innovation and creativity. AI models offer a new futuristic approach to fashion marketing, allowing brands to experiment, so they can look at unique looks, unique styles that might not be easily achievable with human models. Cost effective, to Jason's point, reduces expenses related to photo shoots, hiring models, makeup artists, photographers, location, travel, that kind of stuff. Efficiency as well, that covers travel, because we can generate AI models relatively quickly and adjust them to fit different campaigns. And no logistical constraints. Imagine you want to do a photo shoot that feels like it's in Dubai. You don't need to schedule and travel to that part of the world. Customization. Brands can tailor AI models to fit specific aesthetics, avoiding limitations posed by a human model. Potential for personalization. So in the near future, and we're already seeing this, consumers may want to have AI avatars to visualize how the clothes will fit on their bodies. So it kind of leads into enhancing the shopping experience. We've already been over the negatives. The negatives are not hard to think about. We've spent years trying to unpack unrealistic beauty standards, and then bam, AI generated models completely bring that back. Thin, young, blonde, flawless skin. It's harmful, reinforcing harmful societal pressures that we don't need, and we were, to a certain degree, slowly moving away from that to some degree of success. Actually, also undermining diversity progress. In the past several years, we've seen plus-size models, hijab-wearing models, trans models, but, AI risks reversing all of this. And to Matt's point, homogenized beauty got better interaction. That was their excuse for social media, for their social media posts. Mental health, I don't think we mentioned that. The exposure to being perfect. It's going to be horrible amongst, young people and, to anyone that is, it's not going to be good in that sense. The mental health concern really, really worries me. Potential risk of increasing, various risks around that. Self-esteem, lower self-esteem. Job displacement, that was mentioned as well. We talked about that. Yeah. Ethical concerns. I've got ethical concerns around this as well. Reinforcing bias. What are the true beauty norm standards? If it's all based on AI training data. Basically, there's cost savings and there's creative possibilities. And from that perspective, especially if it was a small brand or, a new company starting out that doesn't have the budget, but it's a slippery slope. And as Matt says, AI plus capitalism, look where we're heading, is scary. And I think other brands will use it as an excuse. And when people outside of marketing teams and creative teams see this, budget holders, finance, CEOs, they'll say, marketing, you don't need that much money because you can do it all with AI. You don't need that much money to create content. So, yes, worrying. And I think, as to Jason's point, I think there's going to be loads of it. I think we're going to be flooded with it. I feel kind of sad about it, to be honest, Jen. Actually, I feel kind of sad about it.
Okay, well, let me bring you back up a little bit on this because I've had a thought on it. And it comes back to a little bit of influencer marketing, which is something I absolutely hate, the term influencer marketing. But if you think about a lot of these high fashion brands, a lot of the time, the models they use, of all brands, I would say high fashion brands always use models who depict the value of the brands. So they're very careful about the models they work with. They usually use them for a reason, a storytelling. There's normally lots behind it, right? So yes, it's one advert in Vogue, but I would hazard a guess that a lot of brands will see the value in the person that they use as that model, especially, established models, but even up and coming. A lot of the time their story tells more than their photo does. And so I hang a little bit of hope on the fact that storytelling will prevail and people will see sense and they'll see the need for these real people because they have followings and they have people who follow them for a reason. And I mean, look at the last 10 years, people will buy products from the people that they truly believe are selling them because it's something they believe in. So I do think there's an element of that influencer piece to it. Brands will suddenly realize if everybody's doing AI and there's nobody really telling a real story, it all just becomes noise. And if you have a brand that has a true person who actually stands for something and they believe in the brand, then that will, I guess, trickle on down the marketing funnel to causing sales. So I'm hanging my hope on that. I'm hoping that if everyone went down this road, the noise would be too loud, and actually the brands that stand true and they use real people and they use real storytelling and they go back to what brand and marketing truly stands for will actually prevail. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm struggling because I'm looking at this from the brand side and the CEOs of large fashion brands and large publishers who will just look at the bottom line. And that side, for them, it's great because there's a whole new world of image rights, of, lack of travel. You don't have to send a rider to Kate Moss's penthouse apartment, 2 weeks before any photo shoot. That's all gone. So from the CEOs and the finance directors are looking at the bottom line and rubbing their hands. From the consumer side, there's all the things that you mentioned. It's mental health, all the work that we've done with diversity, looking to be under threat. So I'm looking at both sides, and that's why I'm kind of squirming in my chair, because I can see the positives for business, and I can see the negatives for the end consumer. Let's see who wins. I think business is going to win to begin with, but I'm going to go with Jen and say, yeah, come on. In the end, humans and storytelling is what makes humans will prevail.
I'm going to try and be optimistic, and I'm going to believe in Jen and believe in Jen's vision of the future here. However, the Jason part of me is like, yeah, I think the next year and a half, we're going to be flooded with this. And I think it'll be a bit of a journey. And I could totally see brands that use human models will proudly write on the image, human generated content.
Organic model.
Yes. What was it in that movie, the Spielberg movie, AI? They had a term. Was it organic for I'm Auger? Was it what I'm Auger? Is it Auger? Was the term Auger for?
I don't remember that movie, apart from the only bit about that movie that I remember is right at the end, after he's been in stasis for 10,000 years and he gets discovered by aliens, and he thinks they're his mum. I don't remember any of the rest of the film because it was pretty bad. Sorry.
I remember the Twin Towers are in the movie, and it was after the Twin Towers were no more. But anyway, we digress. Jen, I'm going to believe in your vision of the future. Thank you for sharing that story. It did bum me out a little bit, though. A bit sad. But anyway, let's see where we get with it. Do you know what, guys? Let's move on to the next story. Jason, the UK have solved online privacy, online safety, passports for porn. You're the expert. Take us through it.
I'm the expert. Okay. So the UK's controversial Online Safety Act actually has taken effect over the last week whilst I've been in the UK. And it's been really interesting talking to many people on the ground of what they think about it. And now what's happening is anyone who's surfing their regular websites or apps will see their feeds kind of change to squeaky clean, with all of the not safe for work content is kind of gone. Even if you try to search for it and you're not of age or you haven't verified, you won't see it. So if you want it back the way it was, you have to actually upload your ID or do AI facial recognition. And so it's got a lot of people riled up. There's actually been around 500,000 signatures on the government website asking them to roll this back. And so that means it has to actually be discussed in Parliament. But I think we can all agree with the spirit of the Act, which kind of aims to stop children accessing harmful content online, which we all know is really easy with just a few clicks to access, right? But now the consequences, like, do we want some of these unscrupulous sites, most are headquartered overseas, to potentially have access to that private data, and those sites being able to link the content that we've actually viewed directly to us as a person? And it has this, the internet was founded on this kind of like anonymous principles. It's kind of like we're going against that. Now, the biggest problem with the current implementation is just a quick Google search shows that you can bypass this whole thing using a VPN. And a VPN, if you don't know, is that it just routes all of your internet traffic through a computer somewhere else in the world. So it makes it difficult to know where exactly you're coming from. And Ofcom, who's responsible for policing these porn sites, has to make sure that they comply, and they've already admitted that there's no way of stopping the Brits from using VPNs to circumvent their age checks. But it has made it illegal for those sites to, and I quote, host, share, or permit content encouraging the use of VPNs to get around their age checks. So I did a quick Google Trends search to see what people are actually searching for in regards to this. And there's been a huge spike in the search term free VPN. Now, the biggest issue with some of these free VPNs are, they can potentially see all of your unencrypted web traffic. I can send you to cloned websites, which can potentially steal your passwords, credit cards, etc., and potentially change the content that you see, because they are the gateway to the internet rather than your internet service provider if you're using one. And for this Online Safety Act to really work, it has to be implemented worldwide, which is likely never going to happen. So the UK government might tell these sites that you regularly visit that we want you to block all VPNs. But the biggest problem with that is that there's a game of whack-a-mole going on with these websites trying to block users who are using VPN. And the VPN providers keep on changing their IP addresses, and the sites will soon enough, figure these out. And then, every week there's a kind of switch over and to stop them blocking it. But my question to you is, do you think that the UK is going to start going all authoritarian and potentially say, look, we to make this all work, we're going to actually ban all VPNs? And what do you guys think of this act in general?
Well, I think it's great news for VPN companies. I think they will have woken up last week and just thought that all the dreams have come true. I mean, they're going to have some pretty good sales figures and new sales targets next year as a result. So it's great for the VPN companies for a start. But to me, it just seems like a merry-go-round, a pointless kind of chasing your tail. People, if they want to go to those particular sites, they will circumvent and use VPNs. But maybe the upside is the very young people who shouldn't have access to these sites, maybe they won't be able to find out how to get a VPN and download it. Or maybe I'm being naive and maybe Gen Alpha already own VPN companies. I don't know. But good news for VPN companies, maybe good news for very young people and putting that barrier in front of them with those harmful sites.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think if you don't see it, you don't know it to do it, to go around how to circumvent it. The only problem is, that's not going to catch everyone. And I don't know what you're saying then, Jason, about are they going to ban VPNs entirely? I think the good thing here is that they're trying to do something, which no one has done for a long time. And these sites have been a problem forever. Go back to chat rooms 20 years ago, there were people being groomed in chat rooms forever. So I think the good thing is that they are trying to limit it, and they are trying to look at ways to bring in rules and regulations. It's never going to go global. You're never going to get every single market to agree to the same approach. And also, I'm sure somewhere in the background, there are people making a lot of money from these websites who are going to go out of their way to make sure that they carry on running. So it's always going to be there. I like the fact they're doing something. I like that it might be a bit of a trial and error, and it's going to have to be, adjusted as they go, but start somewhere. So I think that's good. I'm in the UK next week, so I'll ask around, see if anyone's come up against the problems.
Guys, right now, I feel really sorry for my 14-year-old nephews. But anyway, we didn't talk about my favorite topic. What I predicted at the beginning of the year, I predict it every year. More data breaches, cybersecurity incidents, and handing over ID, facial recognition, biometric data to these age verification systems, which are hosted wherever, vulnerable to breaches and misuse. That would be embarrassing, wouldn't it, if there's a breach and then a list is released of who subscribed to what website. So yeah, the safety of that data being collected. VPNs have been mentioned, so obviously we'll see a spike in VPN demand. However, there are risks with this as well, because, while VPNs can be a legitimate tool for privacy, they also come with their own risks, potential for malicious software, posing as VPNs to steal user data. So those come with risks as well. It's an opportunity for criminal enterprises. Criminals can exploit the situation by targeting individuals seeking to bypass age verification, potentially exposing them to illegal or harmful content. And then other concerns, which we haven't discussed, would be, what if, this pushes people to seek alternatives? So can't access, so they're going to look for something else. So some users, particularly those who are underage or who want to avoid verification, may be pushed towards smaller, less reputable, and potentially more extreme adult content sites that haven't implemented age verification. So concerns there. I think the erosion of online privacy has already been mentioned by Jason. This is not what the internet was originally designed for, and also the way it's been currently implemented, ineffective monitoring and enforcement, the sheer volume of online content and the ease at which users can circumvent systems. I do wonder how easy this is going to be to monitor and enforce. And then where will it end? You know, this could lead to further content censorship. It's not, you know, we made a joke about porn, or, you know, it could go further. You know, if this is about protecting children, what else could be done in the name of protecting children? And then where does it all end? So concerns for both safety and also where it's going to push people to. So yeah, there we go. Jace, do you recommend any particular VPN? Have you tried any while you've been in the UK? Have you been trying which ones work best? Because I might have to get my nephews a VPN as an early Christmas present, and I reckon you might have some tips there.
Okay, so this is where we have our sponsor, VPN, who are sponsoring kindly this episode today. Check them out at .com. Dan just changed the beep to the name of the URL. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, I was just kidding, Jace. But yes, there are many VPNs out there, and I'm sure they'll be if you're in the UK, I'm sure you'll be targeted with VPN ads very soon. Yeah, thanks for that update, Jace. Thanks. Again, I'm a little bit worried. I'm worried about the implementation, and I'm worried about where this is going to go and where this is going to end. It could be censorship overload and excuses being given for things that perhaps don't need to be censored so harshly. Let's see. Anyway, why don't we move on to the next story? And you know what? Matt, you're in Brazil. Football's a big deal over there, and I'd imagine it's quite addictive, but I'm guessing it's addictive in many ways.
Yeah, so we just talked about VPNs, and I use a VPN to watch Sheffield United because nobody in Rio de Janeiro is particularly interested in what Sheffield United are up to, so I have to use that to access and watch their games online. But in real life, I go to the Maracanã as much as I can. I've been indoctrinated into the fan base of Flamengo, and so I'm kind of like, I'm a Flamengo fan now in Rio. So I'll go and watch them, and something that I noticed, I went to Maracanã last weekend. It was the big rival game, Fla-Flu, which is Flamengo Fluminense. 80,000 fans, lots of flags, lots of fireworks, and lots of gambling companies and their logos all over the pitch, all over the shirts. And I was kind of chatting to my mates, and it got me thinking about this. And I've done a little bit of a dig, and Brazilian football is addicted and totally reliant on gambling companies. It's a shame, but it seems to be worse than anywhere else in the world. So if we look at the ads that happen during football games, and they happen during the game, they happen at halftime, and they're all around the pitch as usual. 74% of them are gambling companies. So out of all of those ads, 74% of them are going to be gambling companies in Brazil. If you compare that to England, it's 31%, slightly less addicted to gambling and gambling companies' money. And then, Spain, for example, has zero tolerance. And so I think gambling companies have been banned from football, sports betting companies banned from football in Spain. So there's a big problem. And it also links to regulation. We've been talking about regulation on this show. We've been talking about regulating AI models in the fashion industry, regulating who can access harmful sites, with the UK doing something. And what Jen said was really good. At least the UK government is doing something, actually, rather than just letting it happen. What happened in Brazil with regards to gambling companies and their chokehold on the game is that Jair Bolsonaro, the controversial ex-president, back in 2018, decided to legalize sports gambling, but he didn't put any regulation in place. So we fast forward to 2025, and Brazilian football is addicted to gambling. The teams all have gambling companies on the front of their shirts. In fact, every top flight team in Brazil has a gambling company on the shirt, and it's low-income families that are bankrolling these gambling companies. And that's the problem that we have with non-regulation of these companies. We've now got to a point in Brazil where the league is sponsored by Betano, which is a gambling company. That's been happening since 2024. And before that, we had supermarkets, Chevrolet, Petrobras, Nestle, but now it's all about gambling. And when the teams were asked about stricter regulation and what they thought about it, which is now trying to be implemented, a statement from 50 clubs, a joint statement, said that the sport would collapse if any strict restrictions were put on these gambling companies and the money that they provide to the sport. So it seems as though the teams are saying, it's too late, we can't do anything about this. So Brazilian football is now an example of what happens when you don't regulate these kind of potentially harmful, addictive games online, because in your hand, people are just sat in the bar, they're watching the game, they're gambling, they're at home, they're gambling, they're at the restaurant, they're gambling. It's in the palm of their hand, so regulation is important. I just thought it was something that was interesting to talk about, seeing as though I'm a bit of a football nut. What are your thoughts, guys?
I also agree with this. As soon as you told us about this story, I suddenly thought, but surely it's the same in the Premier League. Like, I'm back when I lived in the UK, watched an awful lot of football because my husband's a bit obsessed. And so obviously, rather than watching the football, I took note of sponsors and what they were up to. And I feel like they went through a period where all shirt sponsors in the UK were the same. And so when you sent it through, I went and had a quick look. And actually, interestingly, from the end of this upcoming season, 2025-2026, gambling companies aren't allowed to be front of shirt sponsors anymore in the Premier League. So they have brought in a regulation to get rid of it. They can still be, arm sponsors, round the pitch sponsors, whatever, but they cannot be front of shirt anymore. And it's for exactly the same reason, because it was normalizing sports gambling, and it obviously had a negative effect. And to your point, the people who were actually betting were the low income, and these footballers should be seen as role models, and they should be setting the standards. So there is a way to regulate it. It is coming, especially in the Premier League. It just feels like you're probably, in Brazil, it's obviously behind. And also, to your point about, where the power sits, if it's sitting with government, then, they're probably not going to do anything. This regulation in the UK has been brought in by the Premier League. In the same way, Formula One 25 years ago, well, maybe 30 years ago, in fact, was all tobacco companies, and it was synonymous with tobacco companies, and wasn't until they brought regulations in to get that out that a big change came. So it's definitely possible. You will see it in the next couple of years in the UK, and hopefully we'll see people going into debt and getting themselves in trouble go down. It's an awful habit to try and kick once people have started, so that effect will take years to knock in, but it is definitely possible.
Yeah, and I just wonder where it's going to go in the age of AI, where all these algorithms are just after you and like trying to get you in any different way. Because I'm not really a gambler at all, but I think I kind of see like more and more these I do like to game here and there and stuff like that, but I don't have the time for it. Luckily, that's why I really get into it. But you see these games where you're gambling crypto instead, so that kind of circumvents the regular gambling laws and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering what people will be able to promote if there was some kind of online gambling ban. And it might not be sports betting, but it might just be the slots, or it might be some other game mechanic that gets you to put money into it, and so you get these other kind of rewards which are not only monetary based, where literally you're getting these crypto tokens out, or just all sorts of other types of things. And it's just with AI algorithms now getting more and more into effect, it's just how it can rope you in. And I'm sure I've got a trigger. We all have some triggers that could potentially just get us to go head deep. But I see some of my younger cousins just completely consumed by these online worlds that are you essentially pouring money in and not getting any of the financial rewards out. It's just crazy. But yeah, I don't know how it's going to go in the future. What do you reckon, Jay?
I hear crypto gambling's also big in Brazil. Is that right, Matt? Do you see crypto gambling on the rise there as well?
I haven't actually seen that, no. But I had a quick dig into Betano, who are the main bet sponsors of the Brasileirão, the league, like the Premier League of Brazil. Mm. So Betano is a brand that's owned by Kaizen Gaming International. They're a Greek company, and they do crypto gambling, meme coin gambling, Candy Crush style mobile game gambling. Mm. And they've just they have created a brand in Betano that is doing extremely well in Brazil. So in answer to your question, no, I haven't seen it firsthand, but behind the scenes, you've got a company that owns the biggest gambling brand in Brazil doing crypto gambling, yes, as a side.
I found out recently, I'm only bringing this up because of the Sheffield connection, but like the hub for all the gambling companies' websites in the UK, a lot of those jobs are in Yorkshire. So I found that super interesting. So they're well-paid jobs, and then you can go there and you can buy yourself a detached property, send your kids to private school, whilst getting Brazilians hooked and potentially affecting lives. But I think there's one element to this that I think we've skipped over, and I think we've skipped over it just because we all accept it as kind of the norm these days. I think a big part of this problem, wherever gambling is a big deal, is the fact that there are gambling apps on smartphones, and we carry our smartphones with us everywhere. It used to be, you'd have to literally go to a physical shop to gamble, or you'd have to go to a place, a casino, wherever, to gamble. Whereas now it's with you all the time. So we've got ridiculous levels of increased addiction risk, the easier access, the financial harm, which I think you touched upon, Matt. It can ruin people, and it can cripple families and have a social impact, causing relationship breakdowns, domestic strife. It targets vulnerable groups, young people, low-income individuals that are a bit of a rough end, and then maybe they just feel like, I just need one big win, so they're more susceptible. I think it also normalizes gambling. So when you brought this topic up, I did a little bit of reading into what's going on in Brazil, and it feels very normalized. You mentioned about the sponsorship and all of that. Seems like it's socially acceptable. There's other bits we haven't touched on, but it's, there's mental health issues linked to anxiety, depression. And then I think it does have an impact of an erosion of cultural values, because it promotes materialism and that kind of get rich quick money mentality, and that's on top of everything else we discussed, the regulatory challenges and data privacy. That's come up a few times today, but there are of course data privacy risks, because people could be exploited, with predatory marketing. Their data could be exploited. So yeah, another story doesn't make me feel particularly good. So I don't know. I've got nothing else to say at the moment, Matt. But yeah,
we've been very doom and gloom today, haven't we?
Yeah. Just like on a downer today.
Come back next week when we might be happier.
But you always play up this I'm on a downer because of AI. It's almost like you're the Caped Crusader.
Actually, Matt, if you listen to episode 93 of Disconnected, I was super pro AI last week when we were talking about line judge calls in Wimbledon and all this other stuff going on. I was all for AI. I think in the right context. I'm a big fan of AI. Genuinely am. Jen had a nice story of AI for good. Yeah, it's well worth listening to. So Jason, today's sponsor is episode 93.
It's all about humans grappling with AI. It's all fun and games because it's a new thing, and it's I'm pro AI, but I also find it extremely interesting to discuss the ways that it needs to be, looked at and contained. So yeah, I'm just joking because I share some of your dark thoughts related to AI, but I think we all do. It's new. It's taken over the world, so it's super interesting.
Yeah. No, brilliant. Yeah, and Dan, thanks for that story. It's good to know. It's that's why it's great to have you on the pod, because we're learning more about your side of the world as well. So yeah, thanks for that. Do you know what, Jace? We did it last week, and do you know what? Let's do it again this week. Last week you gave us a 2-minute update, and you didn't think you could do it, but you did. And so I'm going to challenge you again this week. Why don't you give us a 2-minute update? There's some exciting news coming out of ChatGPT. Take us through it.
Yeah, so I've been trying this out. Is ChatGPT's new study mode dropped just a day and a bit ago, and it's actually got me quite excited. So it's not about spitting out answers like regular ChatGPT. It's like having a patient tutor who asks you questions and walks you through step by step, whether it's math or English or whatever you're looking into. like it helps kids figure things out themselves, which is actually great because we've talked about it so many times about students just using ChatGPT to do their homework for them, right? And also the main thing that they've done is that it's personal. So it learns from all of your history or what you're typing in, and it adjusts to where the student's at. So it'll break things down so they're not overwhelmed. And it also gives you cool things like little quizzes and feedback too, which is something that I didn't really expect. But so they've actually put quite a bit of thought into this. And it's more like a conversation than a lecture. And the biggest thing that I saw in the limited like hour and a bit we were using it this morning is that I feel like my kids can mess up and ask questions to ChatGPT study without feeling dumb, right? So, when you're in class, you don't understand something, you don't want to put your hand up, or some people don't want to feel like they're getting that help. But you can just ask the most whatever questions you want, and it'll keep on dumbing things down until you understand it and you can demonstrate that you've gone on. So it's like, some people will say that there are other tools that actually already do this already, but the thing is, a lot of people just gravitate to ChatGPT, and if it's there giving you the answers for everything, it's not really helping us like evolve as kids or students in general. So yeah, and so for me, it's really good that my kids don't need to. I can give them access to ChatGPT and not have them. Not worry about them just getting all the answers and stuff, and it's free, which is awesome. And you don't need to put in like these long prompts. I'm trying to help my kids study for this, etc. Can you guide them and everything? It's literally just on that mode. But I think there's a couple of bad things. Is that there's just literally one button that they can press to turn off study mode, and then it can just give all the answers. So they need to kind of like contain it within ChatGPT. When you're logged in, it doesn't allow them to get out. But I see it as a solid step for making like AI like a real learning tool and not just a cheat code. And it's got a potential to change how kids learn, how all of us learn, actually.
Definitely. It's definitely a step in the right direction, giving guidance rather than serving up complete essays. Thank you, Jason, for that quick update. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, listeners. This has been episode 94 of Disconnected, and we'll see you on the next one.